once more with feeling here with Continental Divide. First things, this is indeed a misprint. These should be filled in with black. The divide should go across there. I mentioned that in the defective play, but some of you may not see that. You see the intro, you see this, whatever. Okay, but the second thing is, I screwed up in the calculation of stock values. When you're buying a stock, the minimum price is the stock value here, not plus the railroad income, but plus the proportion of the railroad income that would be paid out in dividends. This is going to be a complicated calculation. I also saw that now, largely because of that rule, there was no opportunity to invest further in companies. However, it doesn't look like there would be a great deal of cash, so selling out a company isn't going to be trivial, especially if they start with a high stock value. The problem is, if they don't start with a high stock value, they're not going to have enough money to build what they need to start generating good income to keep pushing the stock value out. So they're going to have trouble making the time limit there. So I suspect, and this being a winsome game, I very much suspect that collusion to some extent is almost necessary in this game. That you probably shouldn't just buy your own share. If somebody sets up a good line and the price is not above your starting limit, and of course we all start with $40, so if somebody starts it at 40, which is liable to happen, whatever income it makes is going to drive it above what anybody else can pay. So you will not have collusion in that company to begin with. And that may mean that it never has it and kind of is strangled compared to some of the other companies. Question, of course, is if two people are working together on a company, the guy who goes in first gets to buy it a little cheaper. And that is a strong disincentive to right away help someone out. So I suspect that people are not going to work together. So here's the thing, you know, if you start your company, say at $30 or whatever, and it adds $7 to its, it adds a couple bucks to its share value based on the railroad income. Well, the next guy's paying more money for exactly what you have. And he's going to make the same income that you have, and he's already assumed that he's going to come in behind you unless he can be cleverer than you are later in the game. There's no mechanism in the game that I see that really helps that player unless it's the mechanism of the turn ordering. If the prices are set such that that player can then turn around and buy the third share and force the first player to be paying a higher price for the fourth share, then maybe there's reason to be colluding. But the negative side of it is there's only so many good routes. And that number seemed, in the game that I played, or started to play, to be less than the number of railroads that are available. Not a lot less, but less. So, we're going to kind of follow the routes that seem to work well in that game, because I don't want to calculate them all out. Unfortunately, it kind of feels like you do have to calculate them all out before you start playing. But whatever. And we'll start with the first player again. I'm going... the player order is by seating order to begin with, because that just does me some good. And it's supposed to be completely random, so it doesn't really matter. These players don't represent anything in particular. And we'll get going. Let's shake up the companies a little bit. First player, I'm going to do the same thing the first player did in the last game, except I'm going to pick a different company. I'm going to pick the Red Northern. I'm going to look at my prices. I'm going to come out of Chicago, run up through Milwaukee, good money there. But then, do I want to run through here? I think so. The other option is just run to Milwaukee, shoot over here. Let's see. There's a little bit of time to screw around, but not a lot. So you've got two competing concerns, which is the space that you've got to get through and the time to run, the time that you have to screw around. So like going up to Minneapolis is kind of cool. And from there I can go to Fargo, and there's actually a decent route coming through here that doesn't look too terribly expensive. That gets me to Seattle, I don't know. But I'm going to look at this. So 12. Yeah, I think I'm going to go up to the Minneapolis. So 12, 20, 24, 28, 32. 40 bucks gets me to Minneapolis. Do I want to spend my whole 40? If nobody's going to collude, definitely. But what kind of cash would I have in return? Well, that depends on how many shares I issue and stuff like that. I am not going to have 20-something bucks to throw back in afterwards. So yeah, I think I'm going to throw that whole 40 bucks in, buy the Red Northern. Okay. Started here in Chicago. And I'm going to buy these 8. Okay, first of all, it has no income yet. Putting it at 40. Nobody's going to be able to buy in on this. So that's 12, 20, 24 of that 40 I'm going to spend right off the bat. Remember, I can only straight line. So that 24 is 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. I'll figure out the shares that I'm releasing in a moment. And that is worth 2, 4, 14, 16 bucks there. Now, there's a few things I need to think about. One, I've spent a big chunk of my money here. I can make it to here off my 40. 3. I feel like I'm going to need 4 or 5 shares for this to work. Given that the companies are able to churn more money than I thought they were, I think putting it out, but the more shares, the more they make. But I make more money if I put less shares. So I think I'm going to try putting 4 shares out instead. That means I bought 1, and there are 3 more available. Now, what does that mean? Maybe I'll change my mind. Ooh, I have to get the rest of those cards into the decks, which I didn't do, so I'll be putting that away. So what that means is I'm making 16. You know what? I'm going to make it 5 shares instead, just because that extra share, I'm going to be making an extra buck early off that extra share. And, you know, I'm not sure that, so I had this whole mechanism before where I was like, well, let me optimize the number of shares, make that as large as possible where I can still get the same amount of money. But honestly, I'm not sure that I want to be taking money out of the company particularly. I may want to be increasing the value of the company more, especially since no one's going to be jumping in on this company with me initially. So this way I'm making $4 a share, but the company I'll be making $12. Well, the company will be making $12 either way here. It's just there's more value total in the company there. So the second share is worth more. Oh, I don't know. Let's go to 5 to be safe. If this indeed is the optimal route, the next 2 players should be following it. But there are different kinds of optimals. There's the eventual cost, there's the income that you can make off of it. There's a whole bunch of stuff that can be compared. But any given player, and there's only one of me, would assess one route as the optimal route. And I don't think this is it, but so now there's nice income coming down this way, but it takes up a big hit of money, and it takes up spaces. This was a problem I had. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 spaces. 12 is the number of pieces you have. No room to go anywhere else. I like this route better at this point. So I think our next player is going to buy the yellow central. Look at my prices. 2, 3, 4, 5, 24, 32. $32 sounds safe. We'll go with that. We don't know how much how many different shares we're going to put out yet. But yeah, we're going to put $32 in. And we really don't have a formula for this. I mean, honestly, you know, with enough play, you probably will come up with one. I'll buy this central company because I'm in the center of the board. Yep, pieces falling all over the place. I do not really like the component choices for this game. Mainly, it's got to do with the tiny little board spaces and cubes that make them unreadable. Okay. Now, I could have, if I indeed could have, I could have bought a share of this, but it's too high a value now. It's now 40 plus 16 divided by 5 is 4, so it's $44. And now I figure out how I'm going to spend my money here. Well, I liked just running down here. So we had 5, 6, 24, 32. 32 is what I started at. We'll make it out to Omaha. 7 of them. Spent all my cash, which isn't a big deal. I'll be making some income unless people buy all my shares. And we're going 2, 4, 6, 8, 14, 16, 24. All right, but how many shares do we need? It's a good question. That's my 32. Second share, third share. I'm feeling like I need at least 5 shares just to, you know, if everybody buys them up, I'll have enough cash to sort of get through there. So we'll do that as well. Is everybody going to be at 5 shares? Probably not. And again, this is just completely like a heuristic that I'm using here, which is, yeah, I made it this far, you know, the prices go higher, but whatever. This is hard to get through. Okay. And that means that these shares are $5 more than the starting price. So now it would be $37 to buy a second yellow. Yellow's already started. There's all kind of advantages to that, but you're giving him an advantage if you do this, and I don't like to do that. So I don't think anybody is going to collude as long as the prices are going to be up in this level. If they drop way down, somebody might be able to convince another player that, yeah, you'll be able to get the advantage and buy multiple shares. But there's big disadvantages to multiple shares. The largest being the extra victory point for potentially selling out. But I'm not sure even at 5 that it's going to be possible to sell out. What I feel like I've run out of with 4 tracks, kind of the decent options of different track lays to make. I mean, there are others. I could run up to here and cut across here, and this isn't terribly bad compared to Minneapolis. There's only $2 extra for Minneapolis. This is actually kind of nice, and it gets me closer to there. So that looks not unappealing. I think somebody will take that. And then there's, you know, there's options coming down this way that I used before. It looks like, hey, St. Louis, you know, compare this 4-2 to the 16-10. Well, obviously the city is making me more, and then these are kind of nice. But to some extent, it's the track that you have to pay for. That's the problem. And it's the straightness of your track. The straighter your track, the more you're going to be able to curve here. So this is really, really appealing. This is really appealing. This, I'm coming down this way, catching a couple okay locations, but also hitting some crap. And then I'm going to be running across here through some crap. It doesn't look that appealing, to tell you the truth. I tested out a lot of different track setups, and I think my favorites were this line here and probably this line here. Just because they're straight, they're easy. You don't have to do much with them, and the expenditures, you know, aren't ridiculous. So like, there's probably a good line coming out of New Orleans, but right away it starts hitting you with some costs. And you can't hit Houston right away. Dallas is appealing. What about coming out of here? Because this only uses up 3 spaces to get me to that. That sounds kind of nice. Somebody might do that, you know. But there's no restriction. I can, you know, 3 people can be in the same space. So I could run this track if I like it and just parallel the other player. And there's nothing really to dissuade you from doing that, from playing the same game as someone else. And especially since there's a disadvantage to buying into someone else's railway, in the sense that you advantage them. You might be getting an advantage over all the other players, but you're giving an advantage to one particular player that's even better than whatever advantage you're getting out of it. I don't see a lot towards that, as long as the prices are up high. If the prices are lower, somebody might want to invest, but you need to have enough cash to make the money to, you know, to keep running, and it just it doesn't feel like there's an easy option there. And of course, cities just attract me, so I end up looking at the cities rather than. There are some good places that aren't cities. They're not necessarily clear. There was a whole line of 4 3s somewhere. I found them in the last game. And I don't remember where they were. I'm kind of not seeing them right now. But they would be something to aim for. They were not cities. They were just spaces. And looking, and I don't know if they existed or not. Oh, here they are. And that just adds to why this track is good. Now, I have to take a turn to drop down to here to go take advantage of this stuff. Now, these get kind of uglier, so, I mean, you know, you're always going to be facing some bad track, too. And just optimizing your route looks like just this nightmare that I don't want to think too hard about. That's not my kind of game, man. You know, not over a problem this big. It's just not pleasant. Anyway, even though I haven't finished the first round going through, I need to get away. I've been playing. This is a hard game for me to face, and because of the optimization, because of all the, you know, and the pieces are even, you know, this is blue, this is black. There's a purple too that ends up, no, that one, and a brown, and they all end up blending together. It's all part of this horrible component mess. I don't know if it was always this case, but yeah, it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant to try to discern what's what in the board, particularly. Although obviously, you know, this is my railroad, and maybe you shouldn't have put the blue next to the black, right, asshole? All right. Okay, well, had to go to bed, so and struggled with starting, of course. Purple ends up running the yellow line, and a little higher starting stock value, primarily because these two spaces were used. I mean, but this looks like a winner line to me. Now, there's a slight disadvantage to that starting stock value increase. And again, how much is that compared to, say, paying a few bucks more for, say, the yellow track? I don't know. You know, I might have been better off buying into that, because this would have been 24 divided by 5 would be $5 more. So for 37 instead of 34, I could have better prospects, you know, I guess. Except that each of these shares is now 34. It makes it a little harder to buy, so people might buy into the yellows more quickly, and I might be able to keep control of my company, which means something in terms of, like, you know, the victory level might be lower. I've released more shares as well, which also makes it more difficult for me to sell out, which might make it yellow a better choice. For the sixth player, we're going to try something different. I want to start my own company, and I'm looking. I liked a run that went through Jefferson City and Kansas City and then kind of shot across. Now, Wichita is interesting to me. Kansas City is all that appealing, to tell you the truth. I mean, maybe this is just better, right? The only problem is I have to go through this stupid 8. This is clearly bad. The prices running through here are like Badlands prices. Why are they so expensive? I don't know. You know, prices through field type areas. It would be nice if everything was kind of similar, but some of these just don't seem to make sense to me. Maybe there's some mystical reason that you couldn't run track through from Memphis to Tulsa easily. But, you know, I was looking at this slow start where I'd only take $12 initially, buy more shares, and try to push out this way. But honestly, I don't know if it even makes sense. I just hate being in the groupthink where everybody's putting out, you know, high-valued certificates that relatively that they have one share of. But selling out shares is a dangerous thing. Of course, each share of something is worth something, if it's going to be worth victory points. So the more certificates you can hold, the better you are. That may be the goal here that Pink's looking at. So I'm going to see if I can be more clever. Right now, I could run their line, which isn't bad, or I could run this line. I don't know if he's Pink actually yet. I could run this line, which doesn't look at all like a bad choice. And let's see, 316. Yeah, why don't we try that? We're not going to use Pink because the choices that I made for my colors were like, oh, central, I'm in the center of the board. Central, yeah, I'm going centrally. And blue, and this is why, you know, he was kind of a dick. Southern, well, I don't know if anybody's going further south than I am. So, Anyway, that's why black and blue ended up next to each other. But at this point, I was kind of looking at, well, I would use pink here to differentiate, but I think I'd rather keep pink. It's very different, and use green instead. Yeah, this is the kind of tactics that I think about in a game. I think I'm going to run this route, and I'm going to set my stock value at only 16 and put out a lot of shares with the thought that I'll be able to buy more shares, which are really the things upon which victory points are based. If we look, it's on a per share basis, and then as long as the railroad's good, the more shares I have, the better, right? That's my thinking. Nobody else has thought in this way on this board, and nor on my previous, so it seems like a good idea to make a start and try it out. Obviously, not getting as big an income to begin with, but another advantage to this is, or maybe disadvantage, is that other people are going to be more likely to invest in it because its price point's lower. You know, we don't have a lot of cash kicking around for anybody, so that is appealing. Of course, the income that it makes is going to be low too, because it's only 1/10 of the income. Speaking of which, let's figure out how much money people make. Let's take a look at, I don't know, let's take a look at the top of the line here, which appears to be purple. It's really hard for me to see. Purple's at 24. There are 6 purple, which means it breaks out exactly at $4 each. 24 minus 4 is 20. So the $4 goes to the person owning a share, and the rest of the shares hand their $20 there. Yellow, also at 24. Only 5 of these though, which means they're worth $5 a share. He gets 5, and only 19 goes into the company treasury. There's only 1 share out of each thing. Red here, 16 divided by 5 is $4. So he gets $4, and 16 minus 4, if I'm remembering correctly, is $12. Okay. Blue is at 13 divided by 5, which is 3. Means he gets $3, and 10 goes into the company. Now, that's a company with a lot of cash on it. Why? Did I fail to spend? That looks suspiciously like I did not spend my money. Let me make sure that was the case. Later in the game, though, this might be hard to catch, and I fear that I will make errors. Black also collected their cash. Let's look at green's because his is a little different numbering. So he's got only $8 in income, of which 10% of 8 is 1, which means we get $1 and the company gets 9. Giving it some operating capital. Most of the companies have a fair amount. Black's looks a little low. Gonna have to worry about that, honestly. Part of it may be a low number of shares, although it's not like the guy who owns it has a lot of cash on hand either. Now we go through a situation where each player, starting with the last player, has to make a decision as to where they want to go in the order. Now there are 2 companies left. What we saw last time was people started these at kind of low values to ensure that they were getting some income. That is of some value, there's no question. I have money in green to get me my $16 to get me out to here. So I don't know that I actually need another green railway, another green share. Maybe it's time to start yet another railroad. And there are good options left. There's this route still. There's another train can run this route. Or I could throw more money into green. But green looks like it's got enough cash for right now. So I think, contrary to the last time I played, there's enough cash lying around that this guy is going to choose to go first and ensure he gets one of those two companies. That goes over here. Now $10 for two companies, or for a second company. How valuable is that? This thing, I'm not going to be able to afford one of them. I don't know if I want it or not. I had a die kicking around here. He's going to make the decision on whether or not he wants to start a second company right away. He's going to choose not to, and is going to go last. The advantage of going last is you get to choose to go first anytime you want, as long as you're last. You get to keep the last position as long as you like and go first when you want. This guy's got basically the same position. $10, start a company. To me, it's an iffy decision. He's going to go with it and start a second company. Now, at this point, I don't think there's too much reason. Nobody has enough cash to buy even a green share, except for him. I don't think there's too much reason for anybody to want to go other than the latest in the turn that they can possibly go. So we're going to grab 5, 4, and 3. Now there might be some cases where there are too many companies playing in one area, where getting to lay track first is important, because only 3 companies can be in any given space. But right now that doesn't appear to be a risk, and those companies are not likely to be starting high enough that it's an issue. We move the choo-choo forward, and we start the second turn, and that's going to start with green. Now, green could 16, $17. I could buy actually multiple shares if I had the cash for it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to start that second company. That's why I took the one position. Had I wanted to just keep investing in green, or possibly something else, but it would have to be something that started before me, I would have gone last. So at this point, I probably want to throw all of my money in, maybe? I don't know. Let me think. I decided to use the red line value here. $24 gets me what red built. Red threw 40 in. I think there's, a cheaper way to do it, but I'm pumping out 7 shares of that. And now I can also build with green, which is 4, 8, 16, and I only think I want to go here because there's these nice 4 3s there. So I'm going to spend $16 of my 25. Keep some cash in green. Green will keep making a few bucks. It'll be a slower build than other railways until somebody starts investing some cash into it, but that's fine. I'm trying to figure out green's value here. This is just wrong. What happened? I only put $16 into green. Their income was 8. Between the two, that would make 24 if there were no shares outstanding. Now, there was a share outstanding which gave me $1. So it should be 16 plus 7 is 23. I don't know how that money ended up there. Again, I'm liable to be filled with errors in playing this game. Just way too much simple arithmetic, or way too many simple arithmetic steps. When you start introducing this much counting or simple arithmetic into a game, it is not good for me. Oh, am I right there? Should I have a buck? Geez, I don't know. 16 and 24 is 40, and I made a buck. That sounds right. Okay. It's just if I made an error here, why wasn't there an error there? I'm not sure. Okay. So now that means I only have 23 bucks to spend. This is 4, 8, 16 of that. We're good on this. I'm wondering if somebody else had an error. 16 bucks there. And we should reach whatever yellow is at. 6, 7, 8, 16 bucks more in income. 24 sounds right. We'll go up to there. Now that's just increased the value. This is now worth 19 a share instead of the 17 that it was worth a moment ago. Again, money doesn't matter to the end victory conditions though. That's the first player. I'm going to tilt this because otherwise I'm going to lose track of where I am. I'm no longer just going around counterclockwise. This guy he's made his decision, unfortunately. 10 bucks, unlike say 12 or more, isn't really enough to get a good start in this environment right now. I could make a tiny start and get down to like Lubbock or something like that. But Jefferson City isn't that uninteresting. It's hard to get to, though. I can only go one space out if I'm doing that and spend 8 of that 10 for a $2 return on investment, which won't give me enough to lay the additional track. It's beginning to look like I really don't want to start this company. Because I could get a $4 return on my investment heading across here. Eventually I could hit Sioux Fall. That makes up some of the ground that I lose. Pierre, maybe. I think I'm going to go up there. So, yeah, I'll spend the 10 bucks on a salmon. That's pink. Yeah. I'll spend the 10 bucks and try to make what I can off of it. But it's not going to be a good income, which means the company's going to be very, very hard pressed to build any track, basically. Pink heading out here with a big income of 4. Blue shot down out of Shreveport, cost them 12 of their 15 bucks, and they managed to pick up the big Dallas space though, and that gives them an income that's with other people. I have no room to screw around though. I got 4 cubes left, 1, 2, 3, 4, to get me to Lubbock. And then from there, I basically have to cut straight across as far as I can tell, unless there's a shortening somewhere. I might be able to make it a little cheaper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 across that way. But basically I'm stuck with this route. Once I start down there, you know, I've used up enough to get down to Shreveport that I only have the capability to go just about straight across. And this actually looks cheaper than this route. So I'll probably go through Lubbock. This 28 is the problem. So I can do some quick addition here. Yeah, I probably don't want to go through, I don't know, there's a 16 here, what the hell. So I probably want to get as far as here. And then here, this is that 28. This is higher than that. So, of course, these are more expensive than this, but by then maybe I'll have made more money, invested more money in the company, something to push it forward. Unlike in an 18xx game, where you really need that big initial investment of cash, it's not as clear here that you do, because you can make fair amount of income each turn that can keep you running. Maybe not so much for crossing the divide. You get 10 bucks when you make it across though. Okay. Now remember, so red is cutting across to here, plans going up to Fargo, still have a little bit of cash on hand. Yellow paid very little just to jump down into this 4-3 space, and then from there we can shoot across at least to here. Question from there becomes, how do we do things? Do we just cut across and try to go through this cheap route here, or do we dingle around in the south a little? I don't think so. But only one space is kind of important. But before I made that one space, 10 plus 1 for 11 bucks, I can buy a share of the pink. Here's where things get kind of ugly. It doesn't track how many shares there are. There's no easy way to show how many there are in the company. So you got to kind of count the players' shares, but that's okay. And that'll let me also build some pink track. Now, obviously, I'm invested in it. Now I want it to do well, you know, I guess. And I'm going to try to see what I can do. Now, this is all used up. There's 3 companies on each of those. But here, Sioux Falls looks like a nice place to head. Another option would be if I could get all the way down there, but I don't think that's going to happen. Like, I could shoot down from there, but I don't think I have enough cubes for that. So I'm going to spend my money and up its value as much as I can. It's been paid out. You can see many of the companies are fairly well funded. The late starting low companies, not so much, but it's okay. We're testing out the different strategies, what works, what doesn't, over this short time span that the game covers. So now player 6 has to make his choice. Now he has actually a pile of money, more than anyone else, 15 bucks. Can he afford anything? He can't afford a green, that's for sure. Does he want a pink? Can he afford one? Pinks currently are 11 bucks. If I go early, I can buy it at advantage and run it and, you know, get some more stuff. I think I probably want to do that. I think I probably do want to invest in more companies rather than hold the cash and put it. My company's perfectly well funded. I don't need to worry about mine yet. It would be neat if I could get something else, but only on a 6 do I hold my position. I do not. So I'm going to take the number 1 position, because what I don't want to have happen is I don't want pink to run before me. Now I probably could have taken the number 2 position instead. Do I want to chance that? The only question is whether he wants to run pink beforehand. Let me see. Yeah, I'm going to actually be a little bit riskier and take the number 2 position. I don't know how much difference that makes. But now we go over to 5. 5 has enough money to buy a pink as well. However, I may not. Okay, there's a reason. Yeah, I'm good. My thinking may have been mistaken. There's a reason that he might want to go for number 1. He chooses not to. Almost as much cash. Number 6 is available. Where did they go last? Over here, clearly not enough money to buy any shares. No real competition. I mean, pink could kind of cut us down here or something, and that would suck. But we don't think they can do that quickly, although there are a lot of players involved in it, perhaps. That could mean it moves faster than we think. But we'll go for 5. Worst comes to worst, it cuts into our revenues a little bit, but we should be able to survive it. What would be bad is if we were just exactly where we needed to be in terms of in terms of total cubes. That's where you can really get harshed, I think. Red is off on their own. They will gladly go as late as they can. Well, now, wait a minute. I, too, could buy a pink. Pinks are only 11 right now. Yeah, we're gonna jump in for that number 1. And now we've just cost him whatever we put down, or maybe worse than that, he won't be able to buy the pink. He should have gone first. There's no question in my mind at this point. The pink owner doesn't really care where he goes, especially since that guy's not going to be able to afford a pink. So I'm not going to be able to deprive anyone of anything, and he's stuck with the number 3 position there. Let me go into turn 3 on the choo-choos. It's in the correct order. The first player. Pinks start at 10. There are 10 of them out. They're at $10 income, which means 10 divided by 10 is 1. Their total value is 11. That's what I have in cash on hand. So I put that money in here. I buy myself a certificate. These are becoming... this railroad might not make it very far because so many shares are coming out that the income is going to be split up. Of course, there's so many shares that might work out okay. And now I have to figure out how much I can run off pink, how much I want to do off my reds. I've set myself up for Fargo, so I'm suspecting that's only going to go 1 space. And you can see reds just pulling away income-wise. That's a nice route for overall income. At least it appears to be so far. I still like this one a lot too, but I hadn't seen how far. Like I had looked and seen, hey, I like that. I hadn't seen just how much I like it. What effect it has on the income track. With pink, I'm being a team player. I'm pulling up to Sioux Fall, not going further. I could just keep, pushing forward, use up that cash, and make pink more expensive for player number 2. But I've chosen not to. And with 10 shares, I don't know how much more expensive I can really make it. It's only going to be $12. It's clearly worth his buying for $12. Interesting happens here with purple. I've spent 4, 8, 16, $24. And that gets me 3, 6, 12, 13, 14 added to my value. I'm out of cubes, except I crossed the line, so I get more. And now I can build some more track. I want to build as far as Cheyenne. Yeah, I don't think there's any harm to that. And then from there, I'm going to jump up here and jog through this pass. So, if I have 16 more bucks, and oh look, I do exactly, I get to add another 8 to my revenue. And oh, that was probably fucking brown I moved. Okay, 3, 6, 12, 3, 6, 12, 18. That can't be right. That can't be right. I don't know. I gotta go count brown to see what their run is. 2, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay. 3, 6, 12. Yeah, that makes sense. So I should have added 14 to purple. Puts them up to 41. And now the 2 extra add another 8. The colors are a real problem. They really are. And this cash goes back in the bank, the 16 bucks. I spent a whole lot on purple this time. But you can see I've run most of the way. Now next turn I'm only going to spend 12, but then I've got a lot of money to spend. And it may be hard for me to make it across the divide because, of course, I got a big income. Players dabble around with pink. over here. But with blue, I made it to Lubbock. That gets both released their resources. That releases the tracks. Now, I had a real thought, hey, what if I stop here and run into here? Well, this would be my last piece before I got my 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I would not make it across the red barrier, which means I basically have to do this. There might be, yeah, no, I basically absolutely have to make it through this. And that's an expensive hop to do, but blue's not, the southern line is not looking terribly attractive right now. And honestly, most of the southern track just didn't look attractive to me. Going through Dallas looked like, you know, some big income, and that may help, but I'm not seeing, you know, the payout there compared to some of these others. Now, obviously, purple's way out here, but red is kicking butt. That's a nice area to run through. This guy didn't have enough cash to buy a pink, which means whatever money pink had left, that's all they had, and they'd kind of run their track as far as they could. So he didn't really get to run pink. Running yellow, found himself in a bit of a problem. Didn't have quite as much cash as purple had. A little difference, you know, cutting it too fine early on or whatever, and wasn't able to make it to Cheyenne. And that's painful because that means I have to spend an extra turn in Cheyenne. Now, I could have stopped here or something, but there's not really a better path. You know, taking a move here and running through this makes me less money. So it's going to delay me another turn compared to what purple has, which, you know, is definitely an issue. That puts us on our last, which is black, and let's see what they can manage. And they cross the barrier, get their cash, or get their cubes. They're kind of cash poor though. Pueblo's 20 bucks. I can probably afford to take that for a turn, then bump down, and, you know, see how quickly I can make it across the divide. I'm not sure how the financing is going to go though. There's not a lot of cash coming into players' hands to allow them to flush it into the company hands. There might be a little bit of tweaking just in terms of trying to maybe release a little bit more cash into the players' hands, but that doesn't really do you all that much good, because that money's going into the companies anyway. It has to be that your route produces you good money, like Red's route is producing good money to keep you fueled. That's kind of the problem. I'll hand out the incomes and figure out the turn order. And probably nobody's going to make that mistake again of, oh yeah, I can afford one of these, unless no one else can, in terms of trying to, you know, get a later turn order from it. The incomes have gotten high enough. The companies have good operating money for the most part. Pink's a little iffy. So many people have bought shares of it, it's not making as much money now. But, you know, it's worth a victory point, and if it sells out, it's worth a second victory point. And if it gets, you know, happens to get further, it could be worth more. It's a low price still. 10 bucks plus 14 bucks for a few victory points. That's well worth it. And also, you know, whatever, some control over it. I don't know if that matters. Everybody's got like one share. But at this point, I don't think anybody's got enough for Brown. Brown's at 27 bucks. Nobody's got that much cash on hand. But Black, for example, has enough money to buy a green share. And with all this investment in pinks, I feel like throwing into green is kind of cool. First of all, green is incredibly healthy. It's on a nice route. And this might be the edge that I get over the people with pink. Of course, some of the people with pink have enough cash too. But we are going to turn in and grab number one. and see if we can undercut and maybe prevent other people from getting green, because green looks very, very healthy and very good. What'll suck is if somebody like this is able to get it, which looks pretty likely. However, it's not guaranteed. So there are a lot of green shares. If that can go up to $4, it'll be 20. He's still got enough money for it. He'll be picking up the number 2 space to ensure that he stays ahead too. How valuable is yellow? Yellow is a pretty good company, probably better than black, so he's going to be ahead of the guy holding the black central here. And let's see, space number 4 here. He only has 15, 18 bucks. Is that enough for a pink? Probably. Do I want more pinks? Yeah, they're worth a couple of victory points each. Is it worth going early for it? Probably. Other people are kind of low on cash. We'll take our option here. Sometimes it's hard to decide, but yeah. Here's the thing though, we buy another pink and we slow down its track lies, because we'll be the sole majority holder. What's been happening is everybody has one share of pink. Now some win some games that you get a share of something you can build in it. Not this one. You have to be one of the majority holders. This might be an incentive for other people to throw more money into pink though, just to make sure that they can keep it running at full steam. What about his holdings? 13 bucks, that's not enough for pink. We are going to go last. Next turn we should have money to buy something. Maybe a brown. Brown is really nice, but I set the price too high to be able to, you know, it's funny because I set green so low so that I could keep buying greens. And then I said, well, why don't I start brown instead? I got a lot of money there. Well, the fact that I set the price too high is causing me problems, actually. Weird, you know, so much to look at in this game. This guy, 16 bucks, maybe get pink, maybe not. We have no idea, but we're going to go as late as possible. If we get a pink, that's cool. If we don't, that's cool too. 13 bucks, well, we don't have much option, do we? That pushes the choo-choo into turn 4. We are halfway through the game, and some of the people are halfway across the board, but the hard part's yet to come. Of course, the incomes are higher now, and the stocks have not been too diluted yet. We've got a lot of cash on hand, but stocks might start getting diluted. People might start picking them up out of the company, and that's going to cause problems. It's kind of weird because the only lever you have towards how much money the corporation holds, and this is true in a lot of the XX games as well, and in some of the other winsomes, the only real lever you have is how much of that offering has actually been subscribed to. That's sort of the opposite. I mean, that's not a realistic thing. Companies decide we're going to put so much money into future development, and we're going to pay so much into dividends. And they don't really worry too much about, we've got an IPO that nobody bought. You know, it's not a decision like that at all. Usually, whatever shares they make available, those all actually get sold to someone. So, as representing the stocks that a corporation holds as the amount that they're paying out, seems like a blunt instrument that doesn't really fit what is actually done. So that always disturbs me in these games. I feel like you should be able to pay out what you like to a large degree. Shareholders might be able to collude, though, and remove a president, and just all kinds of stuff that is not handled correctly as far as I'm concerned. in terms of, you know, how the stock holdings actually represent the power in the company and how they represent the earnings versus withheld earnings that are used for investment. All right, we're ready to start another turn, and I am going to send this, since we're halfway through, this video up, and maybe we'll be able to finish it in one video.